And welcome back, everybody, once again to Monumenta. I am TJ the Obscure here with you, and this is a voiceover. So what ended up happening is it was Friday. I had only made it through maybe not even half of the area, and I realized that the only way I was going to be able to finish is if I just recorded 3 or 4 hours just straight through, and I wasn't able to do commentary as a result of that. So I'm doing commentary after the fact now, and I've also gone ahead and I've edited the video to chop it up into the best parts, into the essential parts, and that way we don't have a bunch of boring stuff, and we won't spend 7 or 8 episodes with me doing these voiceovers. Hopefully it'll just be maybe 2 or 3 at the most. So yeah, anyways, we're still here in the yellow wool area, and it did not start off very well for me, as you saw there. I got denied as soon as I tried to get up on that ledge to break that spawner. But I was also trying to move really quickly through here so that I would be able to finish on time. The resets for the server happen Saturday morning in the AM, like really early, usually around like 1 AM or so. I think I started playing around like 6 in the evening on Friday night. This was after my family and I celebrated Thanksgiving. And yeah, so here we are, and it's well, it's pretty hectic. I must say that this area has probably been my favorite area thus far. I love everything about it. Love the variety in mobs. Love the general layout of it. The landmine creepers are one of my favorite mobs on the server as a whole. The only thing that I do not like about it is just how freaking large it is. So enormous, and one of you in your comments pointed out, like man, this area could be its very own CTM map essentially, and yeah, it could probably be made into maybe like a half-size CTM, like a 8 objective CTM map maybe. There's just so much to it, so very much to it. But I will say that playing as Scout, being able to run and jump around and whatnot, made it a lot of fun. And honestly, since I changed my class from Warrior to Scout, the server has been freaking just awesome. I'm having so much fun with it. Like, wee, just jump out of that gas hole. In fact, I'm thinking that Scout might be a little overpowered, mainly because of the jump boost. Now, that is not an invitation to the devs to nerf it. Please do not get rid of the jump boost. But it does feel at times like I'm, if I didn't have that jump boost, I would have died 20, 30 different times on this area. So, so I don't know. Take that as you will. But please do not get rid of the jump boost. So even though I'm trying to move fast, I'm still trying to pacify the area because I want to make sure that I can collect the loot. And with the way that Monumenta works, it's really easy to fall into traps if you don't pacify areas. It's really easy to end up getting yourself killed essentially. At least I think when you play the area initially, once you finally, I made it up there. It's like my 3rd try to get up there and destroy that spawner. But I think once you have played the area, it should be easier to like know where things are and be able to move through the dungeon quicker and without destroying every single spawner. But yeah, plus this is what I live for. I mean, this is the stuff that I enjoy. Stupid freaking tall grass. I was getting so annoyed by that tall grass. It was just like, it was everywhere. It messes with your visibility. It messes with torch placement and block placement. It messes with combat. I honestly feel like foliage like that is way overused in a lot of recent CTM maps and whatnot. I know that when I was making my map, I showed, which I'm probably never going to release, but I showed off one of the areas, and they said, oh, you should put some grass and some flowers down and stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know, do we really need grass, and especially double tall grass and vines and flowers everywhere? Putting flowers in a CTM map just seems odd to me to begin with, because they, to me, signify, like, peace and, like, you know, nice things, and yet here I am in this dungeon with flowers everywhere and skeletons trying to attack me. It just doesn't make a lot of sense thematically, I don't think. And of course, those charge creepers that we saw a moment ago just scare the crap out of me, so I tend to get a little nervous around them. I did cut out a lot of me just fighting with my bow, just because it's kind of boring to sit there and watch me fire my bow over and over and over again. But I really didn't have to get into a lot of melee combat. I kind of just stood back and killed everything from a distance, which makes it easier, and it's not really what I would prefer, I don't think. Ooh, there's a trap there. There's a trap there. But with Scout, you kind of, you know, it's your best option, just because you have really tough mobs, and not the best weapons. No strength buffs or anything like that, so... Plus, you do all that extra damage with your bow. It just makes sense to kind of hang back and... Whoa, teleporting creepers, to hang back and fight things from a distance. So we're here at the boss mob, which I didn't know at this point. I wasn't entirely sure where to go or what we were doing over here. But that blaze kind of clued me into the fact that we're at another one of these spawners that, you know, in addition to the boss mob, it also spawns all these random mobs, zombies, and blazes and whatnot. But I, of course, wanted to pacify the area before we approach the spawner. Did not want to be backing up into anything too dangerous. See, it gets really boring just sitting there watching me fire my bow over and over again. So some of those mobs take like 7 or 8 shots. Okay, there's the boss, Gray Skull. And he kind of surprised me, so I got really scared and I backed up. I was like, no, please, Mr. Boss, do not kill me. And I was also trying to get a sense of just how powerful he was. You can see there, one shot took me down about 4 or 5 hearts, which means he could potentially 2-shot me. So I was just trying to be very, very careful here. At the same time, I was like, man, I don't want to fight him like this. This seems so cheesy. So I decided to go out and try to draw him out into the open so that we can actually have a real battle. He's very fast, and hits hard. And there's that creeper right behind me, which I knew that there was something about this bridge, but nothing had attacked me on my first pass through, so I didn't think there was anything there, but it turns out there was a creeper spawner down there. And the boss ends up getting kind of lost at this point. He ends up in the water and has totally lost sight of me. So, for the sake of time, I'm just like, whatever, I'm just going to kill him as fast as I can. Even though fighting mobs in the water is kind of cheesy yet again. Volley, activate. So I took out the boss, went to grab the head, and it's not there. I don't know what happened to it. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know, but it was... Like, really, man, I'm trying to move through this fast. I kill the boss, and his head doesn't even drop, which means I have to fight the boss again. And unfortunately, I think it took like 15 minutes or so for the boss to spawn. I cut all of that out, but it took a long time. And finally get him to spawn again, and yet again, he loses sight of me. The one thing I really don't like about this area are the boss fights, because the one with the pigmen was decently set up. You know, there's like an arena for you to fight the boss in, whereas this, it's like the boss spawner is just at the top of a staircase. Like, how does that make any sense? And the first boss that we fought last episode, or the couple episodes before that, kind of the same thing where you just kind of stumble onto the spawner and there's no real area to even fight the boss in. So I felt like those could have been handled a lot better. I'm trying to have like a real battle with him, but he's so fast and he hits so hard that, and I have the hardest time hitting those fast mobs in melee combat. So I was just kind of running around, jumping around, trying to get into a position where I could actually fight him. But that time he did drop his head, and we were able to move on. And at this point, I really should have just said, whatever, let's just continue on with the dungeon, but I was still focused on trying to pacify things and destroy every spawner. You must conquer the area. Take out all those zombies, and then we run, and we're gonna rush it. We're gonna go fast, and then I see a bunch of spider webs, and I'm like, nope, get me out of this place. Get me out of this place. So we're gonna take a strength potion and rush back in there. I hate spider webs. I hate vines. I hate double tall grass. I hate everything, and yet I love this dungeon, even though there are copious amounts of all of those things in here. But you see how the movement of the what is it called again? The scout. The movement of the scout just really allows you to bypass like everything. It's really hard to get trapped as a scout. Really easy to get yourself out of difficult situations, unless you end up in a web, like I did with light blue. Although I can't remember if I played light blue as a scout now, or if I played it as a warrior. At that point, I had also decided to just collect loot as I went along, so that I would be able to maybe take some of it out with me. Because again, at this point, it's probably about like 7 or 8 o'clock. The reset is happening in 4 or 5 hours. I don't know how much the dungeon I have left to go. I know that there's at least 2 more boss battles. Or no, there's only 1 more boss battle left, right? Yeah, I think there's only 1 more boss battle left. But I'm thinking, if I have time to beat the dungeon, I'm not going to have much time to get any loot out. So I just started grabbing it as I went. Excuse me. Just go ahead and blow up there, guy. Fine by me. Fine by me. And I will just say, you guys are spoiled, man. I could have done this all as a montage. Just me, you know, although it's like 5 hours of footage or whatever. It would have been the longest montage to have ever been created. But to make it really easy, I could have just done a montage and released that. And instead, I decided to do this commentary just because having like an hour-long montage with no commentary probably wouldn't have been a very good idea. Whee! And I'm like, oh, okay, we can get out of here. Oh, crap. The ghast has destroyed my tower. I'm not sure, but it seems like they buffed health potions. Is that true? It almost seems like health potions function the way that they used to, but before Mojang nerfed them. Because I swear, like a instant health 2 will heal me like 8 hearts or something crazy like that. And honestly, that I feel like it seems way too powerful. I'm not sure what the reasoning behind that is. And maybe I'm totally mistaken. Maybe they didn't buff health potions at all, but it certainly seems like they did. Another castle, another very large looking castle. And at this point, we encounter these new mobs, these zombie dudes with the guardian heads. And I was trying to get a feel for them to see how powerful they are, how many shots with my bow it was going to take. Volley activate. So lots of foliage, lots of water, and once again, I'm just trying to get a feel for the area because this area seemed very different. It actually felt kind of out of place with the rest of the dungeon. Almost like this area was made for a different dungeon, and then they didn't have anything else to use, so they just kind of plopped it in. The mobs are different. Just the whole feel of it. Whoa! That creeper came out of nowhere. Very good move right there. There's spawners on the bottom, spawners on the top, so when you're busy with one, the other one will surprise you. But yeah, it felt very out of place. At the same time, I think this was probably my favorite part of the dungeon. My favorite area in the dungeon. I like the tunnels. I liked the mobs that they used. Interestingly, this is the area that probably gave me the most problems as a scout because there's webs, it's confined areas, so it's harder to move around and use your movement to your advantage. But nevertheless, I think it ended up being my favorite part of the dungeon. But it's also really long. It's again, it's like there's like dungeons within dungeons within dungeons. And like I know that it's an MMO, right? I never played World of Warcraft. I think I maybe played it for like 2 weeks or something on like the free version, like in like 2011, many years after it had come out. But so I don't, the only MMO that I've really played is RuneScape. And so yeah, I don't have a lot of expertise on this, but the dungeons do feel really large. At the same time, I play them by myself, and that means they're going to take me a lot more time. But like I've been playing a lot of Dark Souls 3 lately. In fact, I finally beat the game for the first time. And even the areas in that don't take me as long as these Monumenta dungeons do. I mean, if you think about it, this is what, episode 5 or 6? And I spent about 5 or 6 hours recording just in this one session. So I think in total it ended up taking me about 12 hours. So, let's say that there's 3 of us, we could cut it down to maybe 4 hours. But even that just seems kind of ridiculous, and essentially what that means is that somebody has to have 4 hours to set aside to be able to play the dungeon, which just seems like too much. But then again, I'm old and have a family and have a job, which means I can only play for like an hour at a time. I got so lucky. I was so thankful my wife was okay with me doing this, because I really wanted to finish the dungeon. So I was like, after Thanksgiving, I'm just going to go play for like 6 hours. And she's like, okay, that's fine. And she was very nice, kept the kids quiet and everything. At this point, the castle started to feel kind of small, because it looked so large from the outside, but once you're on the inside, it seemed like there really wasn't that much going on. Because we have pacified pretty much all, the first, second, and third floors at this point. And I will say that I think maybe I'm playing kind of slow. I don't know if I would call it slow, but I'm playing with the intention of conquering it, I like to conquer areas where I've totally just wiped them out. If you haven't seen the final episode of my Goliath playthrough where I take on the Black Wool, just go watch that, because Render throws me into a room with hundreds and hundreds of spawners, and I spent a couple hours just like totally pacifying it, because that's what I like to do. And again, if I chose not to do that, I could definitely move through the dungeons much quicker. Although, part of me feels like I have to in order to stay alive, because I don't know anything about the dungeon. And if I leave an area dangerous and have to retreat quickly or something, then it can create all kinds of problems. So, I don't know. If I play the dungeon again, I'm sure I could cut my time probably by yeah, at least in half, probably more than that. I bet I could do the dungeon in just a couple of hours by myself if I simply went after the bosses and didn't focus on collecting loot or destroying spawners or anything. Such a hard thing to balance. Although I think you should definitely balance it around the player's first time going into the dungeon. Right? I think that makes sense. But it's funny because you compare this with something like Super Hostile Online, and the dungeons there take you 5 minutes to beat. It's just, and I kind of wonder if that's one of the appeals of the older Super Hostile maps and whatnot, is their simplicity and their, you know, they don't overwhelm the player. And I think a lot of newer CTMs, like you go into it and it's just like you don't even know where to begin. There's so much going on that it becomes really, really overwhelming. And I think more dungeons that take 5 minutes to beat, small mini challenges, would be a good direction to go for the genre as a whole. But I don't know, there seems to be an emphasis on kind of bigger is better, and I think that I may be in the minority here when it comes to wanting smaller dungeons. I love the skellies with the depth strider boots and water areas. I think that is one of the best developments in terms of, you know, what you can do with mobs, is that you can make mobs faster in the water now, because before you would use water to pacify mobs, and you can't necessarily do that anymore now. So I always enjoy seeing those guys. But yeah, this part of the dungeon with the water and the vines, I thought was a really good way to kind of counterbalance the strength of the scout class, and to just generally annoy the player. You know, just so many things to trip up your movement and whatnot. See, like, there was really no reason for me to go up there and take out that spider spawner. I could have left it and moved on and been perfectly fine, but I'm so obsessive about, like, destroying all the things. Not all the time. Sometimes I do just like to run through an area and get the wool, but a lot of the times I'm just like, nope. If I see a spawner, I gotta destroy it. I thought this was an odd place for a checkpoint, because it's not very safe. But we did unlock the checkpoint. Not sure how I feel about the bed mechanic, and I wasn't sure if sleeping in the bed would reset my spawn or not. I was really freaked out at this point because I saw the redstone and I saw the head, and I was thinking that was trying to indicate that this room is trapped, like a little hint to the player. So I decided not to open that chest. But yeah, with areas like this, with the hallways, what you want to do is you want to isolate areas by blocking them off and take them on one at a time. It's slow going, but I think that methodical, strategic approach is the better option here, especially when you don't know anything about the dungeon or what lies ahead. I love the holes in the water with the creepers coming out. Although they're easy to pacify, they're a nice little touch, and if you forget about them, they can be rather deadly. And block it off. The visibility was so bad in here. Movement was terrible. It was just like my worst nightmare. If they threw in blindness, then it would have really been my worst nightmare. I start to get a little bit of lag at this point, I think, which scared the crap out of me, because I run into this room and then my arrows stop flying and the skeleton starts teleporting around everywhere. But for the most part, lag has been pretty non-existent on the server. This may have been something with my internet and not something with the server itself. They've done a really good job of just improving the overall performance, I think. And this ledge up here seemed very odd to me. So I finally go back to check out that chest that I thought was trapped, and the lag hits right as I go to open it. And I'm just like, oh, I'm dead. I'm dead. but thankfully that was not the case. Managed to get it safely. More hallways, so once again we isolate and take on one at a time. I was very confused about where this this baby spider came from. But the spawner is over here. So annoying. Putting the spawners up in the webs like that, so freaking annoying. I think every time I walked into a room like this, I was just like, really? Really? It just keeps going. It just keeps going and going and going. Going and going and going. I played Akran's Iris Clouds map recently, and I ended up giving up on the map. One of the first maps I think I've given up on. I do intend to go back to the map to try to beat it. Not sure if I'll record that or not. But one of the reasons why I gave up is because the area just seemed to go on and on and on. And honestly, it's probably like a third of the size of this dungeon. So, well, not even a third of the size. But there's a point where things just start to feel really tedious, you know? Begone, grass, you shall call me the lawnmower. Vines, grass, get rid of everything. Everything I say. And there should be, I think, one of these really quick guys coming after me. Where's he at? I could have sworn there was one of these really fast guys. There he is. I don't even know where he came from. It looks like he came out of the wall. Head, no arms coming out. I mean, how does he even attack me? Does he just kick me? Does he, like, kick me in my shins? Is that his attack? Like, or does he have a body? It's just invisible? That mob makes no sense to me. The logic is not present in the creation of that mob. Oh, and libraries. I hate libraries, but at least we can jump up on top of them, right? Makes things a little easier. Volley, activate. Sometimes I love that skill, sometimes I hate that skill, because it seems a little inconsistent. I move further into the dungeon, and it's no longer just little bits of water. We have hallways that are made entirely out of water to really hinder movement. I thought about going back to get a pair of Depth Strider boots at this point, and then I remembered that I can't remove my boots, so there's no option for the Depth Strider. I'm really not sure how I feel about the binding curse in an MMO like this. I don't know. I guess if you die more often, it doesn't it doesn't become that big. Whoa, where'd that guy come from? I thought I had blocked off that other direction. And then I remembered, oh yeah, you know, mobs they can climb up those vines. So blocking it off like that is not going to suffice. Have to build an entire wall to prevent them from coming over. I think, yeah, this part I was just loving. I was having so much fun here. Even though my movement is slow, even though there's vines and water everywhere, I felt very paranoid. Like things were going to be falling from the ceiling and coming out of the water, and it's hard to get around, so I was being very cautious and I was just pretty terrified here. and thought for sure I was going to end up dying. Destroy, 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 and block that off. It's like trying to line up the volley tack to get as many mobs as possible. I don't know, I like that. Can't just like spam your bow, you gotta really be strategic about it. Boom, big explosion. I think we're getting pretty close to the end here. Maybe have about 5 minutes left in the video or so. And there's me spamming my bow. Spam the bow, spam the bow. Decided to finally just take that guy out. But you can tell here by how kind of indecisive I am and how kind of frantic I seem that I was really struggling to figure out how best to take on this area. I saw the mycelium and I was like, oh, great. You know, a brand new area, a whole nother area, is what I was thinking. And these guys just start falling from the ceiling and I'm like, okay, nope. Nope, we're done with that. We are going to move on from that. No, thank you. Actually, my plan was to go, because I figured that if I go the other direction, I should find where they're coming from and be able to disable the spawner. So that was my plan. And then, again, they just start coming down this waterfall like crazy. Oh, there's my daughter. There's my daughter. She is unhappy about something. And this was not a smart move because they potentially could have climbed up the vines to get me, but I managed to get out of there safely. And yet another crossroads, so we... Well, first we get blown up, but then we block it off and isolate and conquer. There was something very old school about this map. Maybe it's just the mossy cobble, but it felt very much like an older dungeon, you know, like something you would find in Super Hostile, although much prettier with all the grass and vines and carpets and everything. It did not click for me until I was editing this that I think those are graves. The redstone torches with the gravel. I think that's what they're supposed to be. In which case, it seemed very out of place to have a cemetery, like, just in a room like this. But yeah, I never did realize that until after the fact that there may have been loot underneath the gravel and whatnot. And apparently there's silverfish. I'm guessing he showed up from a creeper explosion, but I wasn't entirely sure. And more areas, like it almost felt like the dungeon was just creating new areas for me to go to. like a dungeon that generates as you play through it, you know, it just felt never ending. And once again, isolate areas and destroy. I was starting to get really frustrated, I think, at this point because the clock's just ticking down and I'm trying to move as fast as I can, but things just kept getting in my way. And another giant room with tons and tons of spiders. I forget why, but I ended up retreating at that point to focus on this other room instead. And again, I wasn't really sure why I did that. Nope. We need to leave this room immediately. Just turn the corner and there's a million mobs after you. And I think because of the layout of this dungeon, like if you're in one area, you're spawning a bunch of mobs in another area. Which makes it that much more challenging, because they tend to build up. But we finally make it in. Those spiders were really making me angry because of how much health they have and how long it took to kill just one. And I realized at this point that this was the area where the zombies were falling down from. So my strategy ended up working out. We were able to pacify that area so that whenever we head into the mycelium place, we won't have a bunch of zombies falling on our heads. So back into this spider room. Destroy, destroy, destroy. And yeah, again, like I don't know why I was so focused on killing every spider. I just get obsessed with things like that. They must all be dead, and the lag started happening again. Oh, but we move on and manage to take out this final room, and that's pretty much the end of the video. So I may have one or two more of these with the voiceovers and whatnot, so you can look forward to those. Anyways, you guys, that's going to be it from me for today. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.